Discussion with economic development staff.
You can if you want.
Denise, would you hit the escape button up there?
What's that?
Oh, the escape button. That one? Yeah, thank you.
We're going to get lined up here with a quick little presentation. I'm Denise Beaver. I'm the Director of Economic Development. And I have with me Paige Sunderland, who's our Deputy Director. Some of you may not have met us before, but I assure you we have been working diligently in the Department of Economic Development for over 30-plus years. So we have lots of experience in economic development. And what I wanted to do today to hopefully answer some of your initial questions and just give you a quick overview of where we are is share with you a presentation that we did recently with at a Chamber of Commerce luncheon with the Greater Baltimore Committee. We are part of the Greater Baltimore region, and so it was very important. And some of this information was also information that we shared in October when we went up to New York for the bond rating presentation. So we're very happy to say that Carroll County has a very dynamic economy, and we want to share with you some of that information. So when we did go to New York, and you probably have heard that we were successful with the county administration and management and budget, as well as the comptroller's office, to achieve the reassurance of our AAA bond rating. And so that was by Fitch, Moody's, and S&P Global Ratings. And so that's very good news for the county, and that shows that, you know, we have a very stable outlook. We presented some information about Carroll County projects and our future land development opportunities. We had strong development metrics, and we do, in economic development, it is kind of a standard practice to take credit for all of the development that goes on in the county, because that's what economic developers do, even though we may not have touched it directly, but we do feel that we have helped to kind of set the table for the development in the county. And as you know, Carroll County has very strong conservative financial management practices, and that bodes very well when you're talking to the bond rating agencies. Next slide. So these are some of the assets that we talk about, our outstanding and highly educated workforce, obviously in the Greater Baltimore area, access to a lot of major transportation hubs. We talk about the Carroll County Regional Airport as an asset. We talk about the industrial sites that we have available currently and what's planned. And one of the assets that doesn't get a lot of attention is the Carroll broadband investment that the county's made over the last 10, 15 years almost, and the expansion of that. So that basically provides that infrastructure for us to be able to attract other development. And we also talk about these Carroll County pillars. These are many of our long-standing companies that have started in Carroll and continue to expand and grow, as well as some of our healthcare and educational institutions. And so the other thing with Carroll is that we have good diversity of our economy, and we found that during COVID in particular, that was really a great asset to have, because we didn't have, you know, a major hit to any one particular type of industry. So these are our Carroll County pillars, and you'll hear that many of them are continuing to grow in Carroll. So this is just a quick snapshot of, you know, some of the industries that we have, with a lot in trade, transportation, and utilities, education and healthcare, professional and scientific jobs. So we have over 4,600 businesses, and 85% of the jobs are in the private sector. One of the things I want you to know is that we actively invest in what we do in business development by a lot of these various means. And what happens is we talk about doing business in Carroll, and what can we do to make it better? And so one of the things in the last year, we talked with the Board of Commissioners about the priority permitting process, and how can we make that, you know, simpler, shorter, more efficient, because that's what we hear from the development community. So they did allow us to reinstitute a priority permitting process for impactful projects that had, you know, good capital investment as well as job creation. And so we write that up and vet that within our department. We take that to the Board of Commissioners, and they say, yes, this is a priority project. And then with the help of development review, we shepherd that process, you know, or that project through the process in a more mindful way, so that we're making sure that we're working with the developers. So that's happening. You probably are aware, we work with the Industrial Development Authority. They're kind of the private arm of economic development in the county. They can buy and sell land, and we work with them for future development projects. We have finished site availability, which we can talk about a little bit. We do have flexible incentives that we offer. The Board of Commissioners provides us an infrastructure fund each year in the budget, and so we can work with projects as they come in and say, okay, what's a stumbling block here? How can we help address that? So we do have some flexibility within our department budget to do that. We also have had a focus over the last year. The Board of Commissioners has directed us to focus on small business as well, and we do work very closely with all the municipalities. We reinstituted a program called Enterprise Carroll, and that program gives us an option to work with businesses under 50 to see what we can do to help them get to the next level of their development and their investment. We do outreach visits all the time, so we're out talking to businesses, and we find out what are their pain points, how can we help them address those. If there's anything that county government can do to address that, we work on that. We do have our Workforce Center, which is part of our department, Carroll County Workforce Development. It's right in the old school across from the main county office building, and so we have that resource available because workforce is typically the #1 issue that businesses have. They need to find workers, they need to train them, they need to keep them trained. So we have that as a resource. We partner with the Carroll County Small Business Development Center. Darren Payton is our small business counselor. He's in our office a couple days a week, and so he provides no-cost counseling to all the small businesses, whether it's through startup, and they do startup classes, and then also they do one-on-one counseling with small business owners to help them. So, and we also have an ag development specialist that's in our office, with ag being our #1 industry. We have that there, and tourism is also part of our department. So we touch all of these areas and work on them to help business development in the county. With regard to workforce, we're working on the pipeline, so we're very focused along with the state partners on apprenticeships and internships so that we can develop that pipeline of workers for the businesses. We are pleased and had mentioned about the Carroll County Career and Technology Center's expansion so that they can continue to provide workers, and it's one of the best career and tech centers in the state, and we're very proud of that. We're also happy to report about the Carroll Community College's Radcliffe grant that they're going to stand up an applied trade center, providing training in manufacturing, construction, transportation, and warehousing to support our local businesses. The next slide, a little hard to see, but this just talks about the composition of the jobs in the various industries. As I said, 85% in the private sector, 3,900 manufacturing jobs, and yeah, that information is available there. We can provide that to you. It's a little hard to see, but that's basically a snapshot of the employment in the various industries in Carroll County. Next slide. We do work with the Maryland Economic Development Association. I'm on the board of that organization, so we're tied in with what's going on with the industry and economic development across the state. We're also members of NIAP, the Commercial Real Estate Development Association, and we work very closely with the Maryland Department of Commerce. So if we have a large project and a large expansion project, we'll actually bring their finance people to the table with us to talk about the project, see what the metrics are of the project, job creation, capital investment. And a lot of times the Maryland Department of Commerce will partner with us in an incentive package to that business. And they have a lot of resources. And when we do our outreach visits, we most often go with our Maryland Department of Commerce representative, our regional representative, so that they can specifically talk about some of those programs that are available to business. As I mentioned, we're partnering with the Small Business Development Center, the Greater Baltimore Committee. We're one of the jurisdictions that's part of the Greater Baltimore Committee. They have new leadership down there, and they're really revamping what their mission is and their outreach is in the region, and we're very much tied into that. They came and did a joint presentation with me in November, and they just were here last week with the Board of Commissioners to talk to them about their all-in 2035 strategic plan. We're members of the Baltimore Metropolitan Council, work very closely with the Chamber of Commerce, Carroll Community College, and all of the local business associations. So one of the things we presented quickly in when we went to New York for the bond rating presentation was the active development projects, and the next slide shows a summary of those. 385 jobs created, over $107 million in capital investment, and 291,000 square feet of expansion. And these projects include projects like Ridge Engineering expansion up in Hampstead, the Long Reach Farms Commercial Center down in Eldersburg, the Westminster Station Retail Center in Westminster, the Penguin Random House. They leased an additional 100,000 square feet at the Eldersburg Business Center. And Penguin Random House, one of our pillars, they've expanded 8 times since Paige and I have been working here. Not that, well, yeah, we do take credit for it, but they're just one of our pillars and continue to be a great local business. And then also it includes the Avapco expansion, which 45,000 square foot office expansion is underway in Tawnytown. So, you know, all of those projects were discussed as active development projects. Then we go to land development in terms of future projects. And here's a listing of all of those projects, which talks about the investment in terms of millions of dollars and the additional square foot that's coming online with these projects. As you can see, all over Mount Airy, Carroll County, South Carroll, North Carroll, Eldersburg area. So those are all the land development projects in the pipeline. Have some detail with that. And then basically, you know, we're very pleased about this AAA bond rating. It's huge for the county continuing to maintain that. And, you know, our other strategic asset, obviously, is our location, you know, being between DC and Baltimore, and, you know, having all of the regional and statewide assets that are readily available for us to access, you know, in terms of all of the military bases, the educational institutions, the healthcare institutions, and the fact that, you know, I always say we have a lot of really smart people that live here and, you know, work in the region, and, you know, we have access to this population of over 10 million. So it is kind of location, location, location. We're in a really good spot, and we have a lot of things going on for us. If you can go back to the first slide, I forgot to mention our rebranding at the beginning. We refreshed our brand, and we have a new tagline, and it's called Grow Better Here. And I feel very strongly in that, in terms of the fact that Carroll County has a lot of wonderful assets and it's a great place. I really feel individuals and families can grow better here, businesses can grow better here, and our communities grow better here. So I do have some lanyards if you want. I can pass those out. We really hope you embrace our refreshed brand and our new tagline, Grow Better Here, because we do have all of the right stuff, all of the right ingredients, I feel, to continue to become a great place for business startup and business growth. And we have all of the resources and assets to continue to make that happen. Now, we do have some challenges, and those are some things which I think, you're realizing, and that, I don't know, Daphne, if they are even in the bottom of the slide. One of the things that, as part of the economic development land study, keep going back down. Yeah, here we go. So the economic development land study, obviously done in 2023, you're probably pretty familiar with it. I don't know if you have they had a presentation on it?
Yes.
Yes, okay, so you've had a presentation on it, so you know what it said. It's presenting some challenges for us in Carroll. If you want to go to the next one. You've seen this map before, what's zoned for commercial industrial. It's not a lot, and we need to address that to help the county address some of its financial challenges. And that is something that, we will be working with you as well as the Board of Commissioners to take a look at with some of the properties that were recommended. Using the CoStar database, it was reported that out of the 28 Baltimore submarkets, Carroll County had the second lowest availability of industrial inventory at 2.1%, the ninth lowest availability of retail at 2.7%, and the second lowest availability of office at 3.8%. So the inventory is small. And also, when you have to look comparatively in the region, who else has inventory? Because that's what people are going to look at, right? If we don't have it, they're going to go somewhere else. And so, we are very low compared to our regional peers. And so that is, that's an issue. And I think you've had, you have that information, and that's the challenge before us. Paige can address some of your other questions that you had shared with us, but it is a challenge, and something that we're all going to have to work together to solve. And I do think some of the projects that we've seen over the years have been businesses that are moving out from particularly Baltimore County area, Baltimore region, and they're moving to us. One, they say because, well, one, so far it's a little less expensive. Two, the workforce. We have a great workforce with good productivity, and so they're saying, okay, we're not finding it where we are, we need to expand, so they're moving out. So that progression of movement, I think, is going to continue to happen, and we have to have the land zoned commercially, industrially, for us to be able to say, okay, we've got space for you. And I mean, Paige can tell you some of the projects that we get requests for, and it's frustrating because we're like, we don't have a lot to offer you, and that's not a good position to be in for us, because we want to say yes, and we want to be successful and be able to provide good alternatives for these companies and help them with all of the other wonderful resources that we have for them to come and do business in Carroll County. So Paige can address some of those things.
Good morning. I'll just make a few comments. Denise read out some of the inventory from the neighboring counties and how we stack up against them. Just to give you a little bit more detail into the existing buildings that are existing today. Let me back up and say we use CoStar, and CoStar is a database that's used by real estate developers, brokers, economic development agencies. The state uses it. And so basically it's like the MLS for commercial real estate, and it's very powerful. it does reporting of, you know, household incomes, consumer spending, traffic counts, and it's got hundreds probably of reports. So, you know, if there's something specific reporting-wise you want to see, you know, please let us know. So I looked at the existing building inventories between Carroll County and the Baltimore metropolitan market. CoStar has about 30 submarkets of Baltimore. Carroll is its own market because we're not that big, whereas in Baltimore County, they're probably split up into 3 or 4 different markets. So what I'm going to show you is the inventory existing between Carroll, vacancy rates between Carroll and the Baltimore metro area. For industrial space, which also includes flex, so that's your Liberty Exchange product there, the vacancy rate in Baltimore metro market is 7.5%. In Carroll County, it's 1.9%. For retail, Baltimore market vacancy rate is 5.3. In Carroll, it's 2.2. And then for office in the Baltimore market, it is 11.6. In Carroll, it's 3.8. Now, that certainly is kind of skewed because Baltimore City does have a lot of office space, and as we know, the office market is not what it used to be, and the office market is hurting. So that 11.8 is higher than it would have been prior to COVID due to that. So I did want to share some of those statistics with you. One of the questions we heard, and speaking of existing building, what suitable buildings exist? And my response is beauty is in the eyes of the beholder. If you take a look at what we have on the market, of that 1.9%, right, that we have the vacancy rate on, you have dated buildings. CoStar ranks buildings, A, B, C, D, and/or with stars. In Carroll, the best we ranked was in retail, and we had a few 4-star retail projects, so like Westminster Station was one, and we had no 5 stars at all, and our industrial inventory is 3 stars or less. Planned retail, another question we got was planned retail, what's coming? In CoStar, proposed commercial developments include Cranberry Road 140 at Caples. There's a empty piece of property there, it kind of sits up the hill. Liberty Exchange and Liberty Exchange 2. There's a strip down off of Liberty Road, and DD World, which is in Finksburg as you come into the county from Baltimore. So that's what's planned and showing in CoStar. Doesn't mean there's any plans on these projects that have been submitted to development review. Traction, what we're trying to attract, high-tech manufacturing is a target. We've worked with Hexagon, which is over at the Westminster Technology Park, Strauss, homegrown out of a garage in Hampstead. Actually in Finksburg, out of a garage in Hampstead was Ridge Engineering, Kenor Brake. Those types of industries are ones that we do have suitable workforce for. As Denise said, we've got a lot of several businesses out of Baltimore County, and their number one thing was workforce. Like, we have the type of workforce they're looking for. Where they came from, they weren't pleased with the results, the productivity that they were getting. And another one of the questions was, where is our greatest success? So I'm going to be a little biased here, and I'm going to tell you a recent project that we have up in Hampstead is the North Carroll Business Park, and I have some flyers here for you. This is an IDA project. As Denise mentioned, the IDA was established in 1980 by the Carroll County Commissioners to further economic development. There was a lack of activity from the private sector to step forward and invest the capital needed. So that was back in the 80s. The capital needed today is off the charts, really. So, this particular property, is about 30 acres of finished land. It sits next to Ridge Engineering's new 85,000 square foot building. The IDA spent about $5 million. Some of the comments earlier was about residential developments and how much money has to be put in before they even get a shovel in the ground to build the building. This was approximately $5 million, and this included stormwater management, access roads from 30, transportation improvements 130, utilities stubbed into the site. So that was just to get here. Now, when we had a recent project look to say, what if I put a 50,000 square foot building in? Well, that was another probably $5 million when they were said and done. It's a hard one to carry. And again, I go back to why was the IDA formed? Because it's really hard to get the return on investment from a private developer. And the IDA can wait it out. So we've had this property on the market about a year or so. We've had a couple of interested parties, but honestly, there are covenants on this property that the IDA has given, so you can't put up a metal building, you can't have a parking lot. We're not looking for Amazon warehouses. You know, they're targeting quality economic development, so they are particular. A lot of the inquiries we've gotten have been
Storage.
outside storage and/or mini storage or parking of large vehicles. And again, a lot of the market right now is, it's soft due to the costs. The IDA has looked at a second property, and we're looking about the same investment of $5 million and getting half the acreage. And that is since this started in its inception. So we've seen it, I've heard it, we've seen it in projects that have been canceled due to the construction costs. It's really hard to get in and turn a profit the way private developers need to do. So how can we help them? Some of the things that we try to do, as Denise said, is the priority permitting process. Understanding some projects are very significant. I wish we could do it for every project. Unfortunately, we can't overload the system, but we've been working well with Chris and his department. If a project doesn't get the official permitting designation, you know, we've worked with Chris to say, hey, keep your eye on whatever project it is, let me know if there's hangups, and he'll kind of watch the project through. So we're not overloading that priority system. Some of the other things that I've heard from the private developers is the timing to get through the system. So we've already talked about a $5 million investment. And then how long is it going to take? It's going to take years if you have a piece of raw property. It's going to take probably 3 years if you need to put in stormwater management. That's a long time. So, you know, we always look at how can we get through that process quicker. A lot of it is dependent upon state regulations. Stormwater certainly out of our control, and it's going to get worse. There's also a new, well, I can't think of the name. It's something coming down from the state, which basically is going to require, it's called Building Energy Performance Standards, will impact buildings over 35,000 square feet, excluding historic schools, manufacturing, and ag buildings. A policy to get to zero greenhouse emissions by 2040. And so they're starting to do data collection this year. I talked to a very large private business who told me it will end up costing them $2 million a year because they cannot retrofit everything to get to zero. So basically you're paying the state because you can't get to that zero. Couple of other things we've heard, suggestions are, again, the review process, which, you know, is unique for every project. It's dependent upon the engineer and the county doing their jobs efficiently and responding to each other comprehensively. Another thing I've heard was planning commission cutoff dates. That, you guys need to do your homework, obviously, when projects come to you, but we've had some projects say, that really messed me up, because I was like ready to go in, and now I have to wait till next month. So it was probably another 6 weeks. And really not, well, for us as well in Eldersburg, connection fees. Connection fees have become a significant cost. And that is something else that, most of our properties are within municipalities. Some have very high connection fees. And that certainly is another detriment to that initial $5 million. This is on top of that. Worked with one project, and it was, the connection fees were over $600,000. And certainly I got hung up on. And we talk about the master plan, and, rezoning land is important, rezoning quality land and marketable locations. I think you've heard me say this before, is very important. Working with our municipalities is very important, because we can zone all the land we want, but if we don't have the infrastructure to serve it, it's not gonna go anywhere. And that's the reality of our situation. A lot of the interest we've had, at least at commerce level projects, it's been water. Meeting with our municipalities throughout the last year, Denise and I have met with every one of them
Yep.
to go over priorities, our priorities, reintroduce ourselves, number one. Here are our priorities. Do they align with yours? How can we serve you better? We understand from a very recent meeting that Westminster has water. That's excellent news. Certainly, you have to go through their allocation process, but, as the county seat, having the necessary infrastructure is really important. So with that, I'll leave it open for any questions.
The employment campus that we designated off Clee Mill Road,
Yes.
is there any activity there?
Not to date. The county commissioners own that property. The IDA has looked at that property. They are interested in that property. However, the employment campus market, again, it's not thriving post-COVID. The IDA is interested in the property. They would be looking to do something more of a light industrial zoning, the L1 zone. Would open it up for a wider audience, a wider target market. All the IDA developments to date have had covenants placed on them, so again, they're not looking for distribution, warehousing, metal buildings. There are some quality aesthetic covenants, as well as not just zoning regulations of who can locate there, but covenants on top of that, which restrict it even further. So yes, there is interest. Have I had interest from an employment campus type developer? No. An employment campus, as the IDA read through the regulations regarding developing an employment campus, it would be impossible for them to do so. The employment campus is meant to be a very comprehensive development, so taking that parcel of land, having one owner, one developer. Literally, when an employment campus plan would come to you, you would be seeing the buildings exactly, their shape, how they're laid out, where the sidewalks are. The IDA product has not been that. They are not a developer who creates that type of campus plan. They do go in, as we look at North Carroll Business Park, and they finish the property and sell it to individual owners.
And I think we do have a work group meeting internally with planning tomorrow, and that's certainly something that, we're going to look at, because the IDA is interested in that property, but probably only if it could be rezoned.
So they're interested in light industrial.
Yes.
What is that considered?
High-tech manufacturing, if you look at the Westminster Technology Park, that's what they would be aiming to do, and that's the same thing they're aiming to do in Hampstead. The same covenants that apply at the tech park apply here as well. And I would suspect the IDA would not create a product without covenants on it. They are very sensitive to creating quality economic development, and I think you can see that product out at the tech park with Kenora Break, Strauss, Hexagon, and Fairlawn.
Okay. Any other comments? Ralph?
No, it's just, it's good to hear a report with a lot of good news. So thank you for that. But just one question, and I think you've alluded to it. So for the next 10 years, we're talking about the master plan now. Your wants and needs high priority is what? Zoning?
And infrastructure.
Finding areas to either expand, is there room to expand current industrial areas, or do we need new, or both?
Probably both. There is a property that, I'm just throwing this one out there, there's a property north of the Westminster Technology Park. It's about 40 acres. It is within the city limits of Westminster. Now they have water. That's very interesting. Now, there are a lot of road improvements that have to be done to 97, and all, again, here we go with all the costs that we keep talking about. So that's an example of something that's already within a municipal limit. Certainly working closely with our municipalities, as I said, is extremely important because of the infrastructure required. Putting a private system in does not lead to the highest and best product. That would typically, maybe a warehousing type of facility, which is, not what the county is targeting nor the IDA. So I think it's working with our municipalities, finding the properties that are within or next to their growth areas if we need to expand that, and ensuring that they have the infrastructure to serve that property. In the economic development and land use study that we presented about a year ago, it had a whole list of properties, if you recall, that the consultant had said, take a look at these, county, take a look at these. And a lot of them, as you go through, are constrained by infrastructure. Zoning was fine, that's why they were included in the study, but it's getting the adequate infrastructure to be able to develop the product into a manufacturing or business campus or industrial park.
And some of them had restrictions in terms of topography and usability and all of that. But it does go back to speak to the importance of working with the towns and the municipalities. And that was a very specific goal that I had this year, was we were going to go out and meet with the development people and whoever's in charge in the cities and the towns and talk to them about what the county's doing, what our goals are, what their goals are, and how we can work together to move forward and opening up and reestablishing those communications. So that's been really key. Those visits have all been received very well. And so I think that's, was the first step for us, moving forward with making sure that we're integrated and kind of on the same page with the towns and the municipalities. So we'll continue those meetings and, really, have reestablished those communication channels. So I think, that's good moving forward. So once we figure out if there are some other properties that are going to be rezoned or designated in the master plan process, we'll be working with the towns and the municipalities on that.
So you're willing to help us identify those areas. There may also be areas that you might want to abandon, and with
Absolutely.
topography
Absolutely.
and
One of them,
general
like I say,
characteristics.
yes, there was, in economic development land use study, it said how many acres of industrial land we had. And as we sat here and said, we could take out, all of Lehigh was included in that. And certainly that's not on the market, so toss that. Another 100 acres in Finksburg was owned by, it is owned by Congolium. It's not on the market. Toss that. What's left? well, there's a property out west in the county that's more suitable for a mountain goat. Well, it is zoned industrial, toss that. So I mean, to your point, yes, it's finding the right properties, finding a property owner, and working with that municipality to install the infrastructure is very important. And certainly when they come to you for plan approvals, I think we all recognize the financial difficulties facing our county, not just our county, but our state. I didn't read the article in full, but Governor Westmore at the MACO conference last week addressed the crowd, and he said, I won't quote specifically, but he said something to this: we have to grow. As a state, development must occur. We can't tax our way out of this. And I got locked out on my Baltimore Sun account, so I wasn't able to finish it. And I'm hoping it was as good as the headline I read. I thought that was very interesting, that there has to be a recognition that growth is necessary. It can be managed, but it is necessary.
Okay.
Thank you.
What's the, when you approach a potential client, customer, or you're approached by someone, what's, specifically talking about the industrial commercial piece,
Okay.
what's their need in terms of size? What are you asking for?
Yeah, I would say 5 acres at least for an industrial property. The IDA property here, the minimum they will subdivide down is 5 acres. I know the county, years ago when we looked, we had another land use study done, it found, I'm gonna say this off the top of my head, and planning can correct me if they remember, it's like 90% of our parcels at that point were like 5 acres or less. I mean, huge chunk of our property, so it needs to be sizable. You
Now,
know, I think
that, you're saying 5 acres because that's your limitation, or is that what they're asking?
market typically.
That's what they're
I mean,
asking.
people might ask for 2 acres, but if the IDA were to carve out 2 acres of this, it really does not behoove the developer in that case, because now you've put 2 acres maybe in the center of that property, and
Right.
now you have someone who wants to come in and do 10 acres, and it constrains the property. So for me, industrial would be 5 acres.
So I'm hearing in your remarks that we're steering away, consciously steering away from warehousing.
I would not say consciously, I would say we don't have the product. The zoning regulations in here in Hampstead, Hampstead zoning, you can't have more than, I believe it's 150 or 200,000 square feet under one roof. And so the larger warehousing interest that has come to us has been thrown out automatically on this property due to that.
So if you had other properties that could sustain or, you know, accommodate a warehouse situation, that would be okay.
We will help everyone who comes through our doors. It may not be our top selection in terms of what we're trying to attract, but certainly we don't have a door to close on anyone. It's a private open market. Right now there is, in Mount Airy, there's been a grading plan submitted for 50 acres. I call it the Pank property. It came up as a Century Business Park, and that's like right off 70. I see that becoming some sort of a warehouse tenant to go in there, or multi-warehouses, having a developer, you know, they've gone into Trade Point or Beth Steel and, you know, done multiple buildings. So I'm not the owner, I don't know the owner's intent, but I would suspect that that type of property would be marketable for distribution.
And we haven't had a lot of those just because of the lack of interstate. And that
Except
one.
for 70.
Yeah, except for 70 down there. So that's very close. So, yeah, like Paige said, we wouldn't say no. We would tell them what we have available, and, you know, then it becomes a business decision, and, you know, what can we do to help them if they choose to want to come here.
So, yeah, the transportation network's super
Right,
important with
right.
any kind of industrial, commercial development, yeah, okay. I'm just trying to get a picture for when we're planning out what we're thinking, so we're all on the same page. And just, just, what's a home run for you guys? I mean, you could retire. If you hit,
Ooh,
if
we'll
you
let you
hit,
know later today, no.
Yeah, yeah, we're working on it.
We're working on it, we are working on it, so stay tuned, but we can't
Did you
say
listen,
anything.
If you
did
could
you
have- I know.
listen to us last week?
if you could have your dream, and you could say, this is what I want, this is what I need, this is my kingdom, I gotta have this, and I could hit every ball out of the park, what would it be?
I would say Kenora Break,
Yeah, they're awesome,
a Fuchs,
yeah.
a,
Fuchs North
you know,
America,
it's a
yeah.
big building, they're over 200,000 square feet, they're, good paying jobs, manufacturing jobs, benefits, and really good companies to work with. A lot of our companies are very committed. Kenora Break especially, they're out there, New Life for Girls and.
Kenora
and-
Cares, they have a whole program where they invest back in the community, so those are great companies. Yeah, and Hexagon, another one that was in Tawnytown in a small space, wanted to expand, had some space, with a spec building in Westminster, worked with them to move in there. So, it's those types of companies, and we are kind of coming to almost a critical mass up there. That's why it's the Westminster Technology Park, and, those specialty manufacturers that, are located there off of Maryland 97. That's good. That's all success. So,
There was a recent one who came to us that they were gonna
Yeah.
come out of California.
Right.
And they were
Small,
clean,
startup.
yeah, clean energy, storage. And they found Carroll County, actually, someone who was located here referred
Right.
to us, which is how we get a lot of our
Right.
referrals. And we couldn't come up with a product that was suitable for them. And they're, in that 1.9% of vacancy, there wasn't anything that was of interest to them.
So they were looking for a 5 acre along a major.
Now,
No,
this
they were just
particular company
small.
was looking to lease an existing building,
Oh,
that
okay.
1.9%. And the product inventory just was not suitable for what they were hoping to get. So we lost them to Pennsylvania.
So you're handcuffed by the existing inventory that you have to work with?
yes.
And you're handcuffed by the lack of available
Yes.
property, zoning.
Yes. But in spite of ourselves,
That's right.
we've seen some of the successes
You got some good stuff there. no
And we
question.
take credit for it all.
No question, no doubt. Absolutely,
we learned well.
good stuff.
So my question would be is, what, the jobs that we export out of our county, south and east and west, and what kind of jobs are they that we're losing? Because they're not really manufacturing jobs, they're different jobs. How can we as Carroll County keep those people at home, I mean, I think you're saying the inventory is one of the problems, because I think a lot of our larger businesses, as technology grows, they're gonna have more smaller sites where they can still get people together, and, in my opinion.
Right, and sometimes, I look at like, the campus down in Owings Mills, I can't even think of the name right now, Red Run, all right, well, it wasn't the one I was thinking where T-Row is.
T-Row Price.
Beautiful, beautiful campus, and that attracts a T-Row. Again, all those companies are pulling back as well. They're finding, a lot of remote work can be done remotely, which, decreases their cost in terms of footprint of real estate that they're leasing. But we just don't have a park at times that represents what a particular user might want. But we have to be cognizant that we're not overpricing ourselves out of the market and putting out a product that's suitable. As I said, like the employment campus itself, really in today's market, besides the development restrictions that made it impossible for an IDA to do, the focus is just not on office to the degree it was anymore. So, I would hope for the county to be as flexible as we can, recognizing zoning is important. Companies also don't want to go into a park like the tech park. They are very protective of their park. The owners have a landowners association to ensure that the covenants belong to them, so they have to enforce the covenants, or amongst the 5 owners, they have to go to each other if they want to expand, take a look at my project, does it meet, they care about what their property looks like. And I think that's really important. One of the tenants of that park had come out of the Air Business Center because they said it became too much of a mess. There were just too many different uses that weren't where they felt their clients would want to come to. So they did go over.
But a lot of those jobs that are going outside of the county are for federal, state jobs, universities, military, Fort Meade. We have a lot of people that live in Carroll that travel to Fort Meade. It's going to be really hard to replace those salaries, but I do think that's why I really feel our Carroll broadband infrastructure is really important, because, not only does it connect all of the institutions in the county and allows for, high-speed internet to those institutions, but with the emphasis and the investment from the state and the federal government on expanding broadband infrastructure, the last mile projects and things like that, that people will be able to work at home. So we may be able to, and we've seen that trend happen over the last couple of years where more and more people are working at home. So, hopefully we can still retain them, as residents. They'll still be able to maintain their jobs. It is going to be difficult. We have had a challenge with matching. We try to do a lot of education with the existing businesses to look at their wage and salary programs to be able to be comparable to what people are making out of the area. So that's a continuing challenge.
Just a question on the significance of transportation. So the only major roadway running through Carroll County is on the far end, 70. So you kind of build it where they are or build it where they ain't, I guess. So how significant is that, and is there a challenge to move a lot of this business down into the Mount Airy area? Are there challenges there, or are you looking into that, or give me a little bit of an overview about that, the significance of 70, Mount Airy, the growth that's down there, the people that are available in that area?
We met with Mount Airy about 2 months ago and discussed development there. The Mount Airy Crossing project that had come up, right now it's an appeal. The project was denied by the town due to walkability issues that their planning commission considers walkability, and I believe it was the mixed zone. I think that's what it called. And the fact that they were on both different sides of 27 and they were going to just do a pedestrian crosswalk. Their planning commission did not consider that walkable, so they denied it, and the developer is appealing that. So right now, they have that large project that's we're not quite sure where it's going to go, and, what is the appetite of the town to allow more development, and what would that be? So, is it, yes, it's a wonderful geographic area of the county. Could certainly, from 270 and bring some of those types of companies, higher technology type of companies up. But we, again, have to work with our municipalities and respect their priorities and what they are willing to do and not do.
Okay.
What about 795? It doesn't come into the county, but it comes close. Then there's 140. I mean, is there more of a potential for development, industrial in that area, or commercial?
I mean, Finksburg, certainly people love Finksburg. Of course, the limitations are there's really nothing left there to develop, very small parcels here or there, and the lack of public water and sewer.
I'm curious, historically, what sort of absorption rates are we having in the county? I mean, if you break out industrial, business park, tech space, and office, what kind of absorption rates are we running? And do we consider it healthy, or is it below healthy?
Net absorption, the percentage, I don't have the percentage, but that's retail, let's
We
go
have
to.
positive absorption, obviously, good health and market demand. We have positive absorption in office and negative, and positive in office and retail and negative
Negative.
in industrial.
The 12-month net absorption rate in Carroll was 39,000 square feet.
For 12 months?
Yes. So basically, that means that we lost
I get it.
40,000.
Down.
Any other questions? Any questions from the public? Okay. Well, thank you. Can we get a copy of this sent to us, please?
Yes.